Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Love. I know y'all missed me. I've been gone for a while. I had a lot going on, but I'm back. I'm refreshed. And I am joined today by one of my panelists that graced us with her beautiful presence on May 7th at my third annual brunch called Love. Sierra Walker.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey,
I
hey,
wish I know how to do
everybody.
the applause. I'm gonna get to
I'll do my own hand
nah.
clap.
Welcome to Let's Talk Love. I want you to tell everyone a little bit about you and your little background before we dive right into our topic for today.
Okay, well, hey, everybody. My name is Sierra Walker. I am the founder of Dana's Daughters, Inc. It is an organization for women and adolescent girls ages 12 and up, and we specialize in holistic healing from trauma. So all day long, 24/7, that's what we deal with, trauma, overcoming trauma. We do the practical piece of it, but then we also have the spiritual piece. We definitely believe that you can have Jesus and a therapist too, and
Amen.
whatever else you need to do to get over your trauma. But the most important piece is that you take care of you always, because if you don't take care of you, then it's a ripple effect. It impacts your family, the next generation, your children, your community. If one is hurting, everybody's hurting, but if one is healed, everybody's healed.
Amen. And I love what y'all do over at Dana's Daughter. It's very much needed. I know y'all I know the main focus is sexual abuse, correct?
Not necessarily. It kind of shifted that way. I don't
Okay.
even know what happened or how we got there. We actually started dealing with abandonment,
Okay.
and we had originally hosted our fatherless daughters event, and so it started from that, and then
Okay.
it's kind of grown into all of these other issues. But domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking has turned into
The big
one of our biggest events.
Yeah, same with Women at a Stand. It's amazing how the years go and then it evolves into other different pieces that you wasn't expecting. But
Yeah.
kudos to you and your sister. Y'all have an amazing organization. Towards the end of this podcast, I'm gonna allow you to let everyone know where to find you at, how to reach you, and all of that good stuff. So today we are talking about healing from trauma. It was one of the topics that was really, I think, the forefront of the brunch, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. And I really think that you was the most appropriate person to really touch on more about healing from trauma, especially with your organization. So, first question, have you ever been in a traumatic situation?
Yes. Yes. You'll see me. Yes.
Do you want to elaborate more on it?
Yeah. Um, I would say that I was one who used to think that God hated me. And I felt like God hated me because it seemed like my entire life has been nothing but trouble, nothing but turmoil, and some sort of trauma. Um, if you go back to my origins, where my mom was asked to put me up for adoption before I even got here. Actually, excuse me, she was asked to get an abortion because she was only 15. She had already had a child that was a product of rape when she was 14. And
Okay.
so here I come right
Right.
behind that. So by the time she was 16, she would have had two children. So then when she didn't want to get the abortion, they would ask her to put me up for adoption. So when I was born, um, my mother never got an opportunity to hold me. I immediately went into the nurse's hands, and she didn't see me for 3 months. So in between that 3 month window, she realized that she made a decision that she couldn't live with and sought me back out, and they wound up coming back to get me. But from that moment on, it's been like one thing after another. I was molested as a child, was a teenage mom. After my mom was gone for a while, it was a couple of years where she just stopped coming to get me. And then I had a father who turned to heroin. So he was addicted. Addiction runs really heavy in my family. By the time I got back in contact with my mother, I was very bitter, very angry, very frustrated, um, felt unloved, unwanted. I became a teenage mom, looking for love in all the wrong places, didn't even want to be having sex, wasn't even thinking about sex, but, want to be a big girl.
Right.
You know how we do, run our mouths and
Uh-huh.
somehow get us into trouble. Don't even know what's going on. I might have watched a couple of shows. I'm not sure, but that was about it at that time.
Right.
But and then by the time I was 18 years old, I was raped by someone that I attended college with. I had always been a girl who had a lot of male friends. That was just my thing. I get along and have always gotten along with males a little bit easier than I did with women. And I trusted this person, and that person took complete advantage of the situation. Some years went by. I was in an abusive relationship with my ex-husband. And so I know a lot about trauma.
Yeah.
And now it even to the point of even dealing with the grief piece of it, dealing with losing a child in utero. So my last pregnancy, I was pregnant with twins. They were fraternal twins. But by the time I went back to get my ultrasound at 12 weeks, one was deceased and the other one was living.
Oh, wow.
Thank God that they were fraternal, because it didn't make me end the pregnancy completely. But
Right.
all in all, the long and short is that I know a lot about trauma. I have had a lot of traumatic situations that have happened in my life.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, I think we have similar backgrounds. I don't know if you know. So my mom, my mom wasn't young when she had me. She was 25, but my mom have a mental illness. She has Asperger. So when she got pregnant with me, she had no clue or idea of how to be a mother or where to start. So she after she had me, she had my brother like a year later, and she placed both of us in foster care. So I was in foster care for a while, like a good part of my life. And then my dad, he fought to get us out. So similar but not so similar because my mom was a little bit older. But because of her mental illness, she probably was in the mindset of a 15, 16-year-old at the time. And she was 25. So I know how that felt. But this leads to what we was touching on at the brunch with the generational curse. And I digged a little deep in that because my background psychology, applied psychology, all I do is research things all day long. So what I found something on intergenerational trauma, which is, it refers to the ways in which trauma experienced in the past can impact the health and well-being of future generations, trickling down to family members. So what you just broke down, unconsciously, we're like repeating patterns that we're not aware of what we're repeating. So how do you pose that we break that generational curse?
That's a great question. I think that the first step to overcoming anything is one to acknowledge that there's even a problem. I think a large portion of our issues in our communities is the fact that nobody wants to just say that this is my truth, right? So even at the brunch, we kind of got into this, just talking about what the truth is, own your truth. And instead, we want to sweep it under the rug. We have all of these family secrets. Nobody's talking about what's been going on, what happened to grandmama and big mama and the cousins and aunties and uncles. It's just, we want to slap a bandage on top of it or put some type of blanket over top of all of these secrets and not really deal with it. So to really overcome that generational curse, the first thing is to acknowledge that there even is a problem. Once you do that, then it comes to a choice. You have to choose to want to be healed, to want to be an active participant in that healing, to want to be active in changing exactly what's going on in your life. And after making that decision, then you have to do the action piece of it. You have to start walking in it. You have to start doing something differently. So for everybody, it's going to look a little bit different. I know for me, it was developing a relationship with God. Now, God didn't heal me, and then subsequently make everything just disappear and go away.
Right.
And then I was tight and with him, and we was just like best friends.
Right.
No,
It doesn't work like that. We want it to work like that, but it don't
right.
work
If
like
it was
that.
just magic, it could just disappear. But that's not how it happens. You know, I met Jesus when I was very broken, in a very, very bad state. Having been suicidal, having just had a bad attitude and a very dark outlook on life. Like, I didn't want to live. I didn't care about anybody. I would not be attached to anyone. Those things were just following me. And so once I decided to have a relationship with him, then that started to shift the trajectory of my life, because then I started to see myself the way that he sees me and who he has said I'm supposed to be. But there was still some very painful moments, and still are very painful moments even in that process. And for those who don't necessarily have that approach with believing in God, or believing in God the way that I do, even just getting to a point where you can finally say, like, this is what's happening to me. Something's very wrong. I can see that my grandmother had a baby at 15, and her mother had a baby at 13, and now my mother, she had a child at 16, and then here it is that I also
I'm repeating the same cycle.
Exactly. It's like you have to recognize it and then want to do something about it. A lot of times we just conform and become complacent with what's happening. It's like, oh well, this is just what it is. This is who I am. I'm not going to change. It's always going to be this way. And that's a lie. It's a lie. And it's a lie that I chose not to believe in. I chose not to stand for, and wanted to do something differently in my life, because I knew that if I didn't change it, then even for my children, you know, what would become of them? They would do the same thing. And it has to stop somewhere.
So, and that's good that you touched on that that topic of owning your truth. Stephanie was like very interested in owning your truth. You know, that is a strong like belief of mine, like accountability, and like really looking within yourself to try to figure out what it is you need to change in order for you to move on and change the narrative of your life. I think it's so important. I think that a lot of us don't realize that, because we're always pointing fingers at everybody else but ourselves. Like, we need to like look within ourselves to try to figure out, okay, what it is I need to change. Because I was like that with myself as well. I'm like, okay, after I acknowledge that, okay, my mom was not in that right state of mind to take care of me, because in the beginning, I was not in that state of mind. I blamed her for everything. I blamed her for leaving. I blamed her for how effed up my life was, how unemotionally attached that I was. I blamed her for everything, but not really recognizing, okay, I need to forgive her. And it wasn't even about forgiving her, because at the time I did not realize she was not in the mindset to be a mother. So once I realized that, I'm like, okay, I am in the mindset to be a mother. So I'm going to change this narrative, and I'm going to be what I wanted my mother to be to my children. So I do believe that we need to like look within ourselves first in order to like break that generational curse, because like you said, it can be done. I mean, both of us are living proofs that it can be done. Can trauma be mental and physical?
Yes. It's so interesting that you even bring up that point, because it's something that I always thought went hand in hand. I didn't know the science behind it necessarily, but you know, as of course with some education now, and also just going to therapy myself, with putting those two pieces together, and everything that I have learned over the course of these years is that a lot of illness that we have that's even in our communities is not necessarily coming from a natural place. So we talk about, always say, oh, it's the hormones in the food, always,
Right.
You know,
Again, pointing the fingers.
Oh, it's something in the water.
Right.
And maybe a little
Sun
bit
in the
of that.
air.
Yes. You know, we breathing this stuff in, but a lot of it comes from our own trauma, because when you have all of these unhealed places and unhealed things that's going on on the inside, most of the time for us, I know for me, I was a barrier. So if something happens to me, I would just stack it up. I would always just take it in and take it down, take it in, tuck it down until it gets to here. And then I explode on everybody, somebody who's done nothing to me, you know, is trying to figure it out why. And so most of us are carrying our trauma quietly. And when you do that, then ultimately it starts to turn into other things. So you wonder why you can't sleep at night. Now you have insomnia. Why you're getting these headaches. Now you have migraines. Even when you're talking about cancer, if you're talking about diabetes, if you're talking about high blood pressure, a lot of these things are as a result of your trauma. It is a physical response to the trauma that has happened. And so what a lot of people find is that if you take a holistic approach to healing whatever is going on inside of you, with like the physical pieces of it, even like body aches and pains, you know, hip pain, back pain, shoulder pain. I know that like for this past year, like once my mother had passed away, and just dealing with that grief, I knew that when I was in the worst of it, I kept having this aching on my side, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I changed the mattress. I went to the doctor. I'm like,
I did the same thing though. That's why I'm laughing, because I'm like, okay, am I falling apart? Is this turning 40? What's going on? I did the same thing.
Associated with all of these other things, we always think about all of the natural things, but we forget that we are spiritual beings that's having natural experiences and not the other way around.
Right.
And so once you recognize that, you start to see like, man, there's something else that's happening here. And so I cannot remember the author's name right now, and I wish that I did. But there was a book that's out that actually talks about this specifically, about how the physical pieces of trauma, how it's manifested physically. What has happened to you. And so if you're talking about your headaches, if you're talking about your body aches, if you're talking about having chest pain, palpitations, shortness of breath, even those simple things, that is all stemming from that.
Well, you know, again, my little researching and stuff, I'm fully aware of how mentally and physically that trauma can impact your body. I know that with me, I still deal with these triggers. Like I'm tricked, like not every little thing now, but it's certain things that trigger me to the point like it just had my body going to some type of shock unknowingly. Like if someone raised their voice in the aggressive way, it has my body going to shock. Like if people talk with their hands as if they're about to like hit me or something,
right?
That's a trigger to me as well, and I'm in my fight or flight mode. So like stuff like that really do affect you unknowingly. So it's always good to be aware of the mental and the physical aspect of what trauma can do. So this leads to the next question, because you touch a little bit on therapy, and we all know that therapy is important. Some people avoid it, and it's not okay, but sometimes it is okay. I don't know, but when should you seek professional counseling?
I feel that a lot of times we too late in the process. We are always reactive instead of proactive.
Exactly.
And so I personally think that we should end the stigma in the community. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so if we end this stigma that there's something wrong with going to a therapist, there's something wrong with having this conversation with someone just to release whatever it is that's happening, or to take more of a scientific approach to try to overcome these things, because sometimes we deal with vicarious trauma, you know, whether it's childhood trauma because you watched it happen in the household, or things that you have become numb to, things that you don't even know that you were impacted by. Just having those healthy conversations regularly could release some of those things and prevent you from getting there.
Right.
But if you are at a place where it's already too late, these things have already happened, I think that it's very important for people to take action right away. As soon as you are aware of it and you make the decision to make the change and want to do better, then go into therapy. I know that, again, going back to last year for myself, that when my mom, after she passed away and all of these things started coming up, it was things that her and I had discussed. There were a lot of healed places for us, both while she was here, but then there was a portion of it that was not. And unfortunately, I will never get that from her because she's not here anymore. But she had written me this letter that encouraged me to do so, like to go. She wanted the things, she told me specifically that she wanted me to have what she never could achieve.
Okay.
And so she encouraged me to go to therapy so that I could get the release. She wasn't interested in doing it at that point because she felt like she was at the end of her life, but she said I still had a life to live. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I listened. I did not move right away.
Right.
But I moved when I felt like I was drowning. I literally couldn't get out of bed. My thoughts were racing all of the time. I was having many panic attacks, suffering from like PTSD. It was a lot. I could just constantly see her dying every single day. I would hear the sound of her taking her last breath. I could feel the temperature of her skin, you know, as she was passing away, like remembering just those things, like the temperature in the room. Every single thing was heightened for me, right? And so when I knew that all of this was like very real to me and present, but it was a few months in the past. And then I started taking it out on the people that I loved and I cared about. I said, it's time for me to do something different. And so that's why I went to therapy. And it has really been helpful. It has been the best portion of me going through these past few months, with being able to overcome and to maintain and not just suppress, but actually live. Because before I was always suppressing. I was always looking like I'm okay. You know how we do. We put our makeup on, we put on that mask, we put that smile on, because you got to do. Like, if you're a parent, you still got a life to live. You still have children to take care of. Like, life does not stop because you have had trauma. It just doesn't. But you have to get to a certain point of self-care where you say, hey, I have to put me first, because if I don't take care of me, I'm no good to anyone else.
And so I experienced, it's funny how, it's not funny, but it's like, it's kind of intriguing how grief can bring out more. Because I know for me, like I went through the healing process. I went through therapy. I know back then when I was going through everything, I did wait a while because, you know, we're brought up and we're taught, oh, you don't tell strangers your business. Like, you handle this within your home type thing. So I was a little hesitant about therapy at the time. And true story, I was in nursing school when all of this was going on. And then I was like, once I started therapy and everything, I was like, psychology is where I need to be and transition to psychology to get my psychology degree. But when my dad passed away in 2020, it was like everything started to resurface again. Everything that I like had worked so hard on with trying to heal from had came back in full blast. It was like, and like you, I wasn't present when my dad passed away, and I blame myself for that. I was on vacation and got the call and had to hurry up and fly back home. Saw my dad 2 days before I flew out on his birthday. He died 2 days after his birthday.
Wow.
So I kept on blaming myself, like I shouldn't have left. I should have just stayed. That was the first thing, like blaming myself. And then the second thing, I just remembered that phone call I got constantly every day. Like, he passed away, and how like I felt like I could not breathe. And I'm like, that's when I knew that I need to go back to therapy because something is not right. I was not sleeping. I was having anxiety attacks again. I ain't had one in so long. Like everything was just coming back like full surface. I was starting to just latch out to everyone. I was not right. Like I had to go. So I was happy that I was able to recognize this go around that I needed it versus in the past when I was like, no, I'm good. I can just handle this on my own. If I just stay away from people, stay in my little bubble. You know how it is. Like nobody don't F with me. I don't F with them. I'm good. So, but this go around, I was like, nah, because if I fall apart, my kids gonna fall apart. We're all devastated. I need to go talk to someone about this. So I do think that we need to address it sooner rather than later. I mean, for the people that is tuning in, therapy is not bad. It has been wonderful. I'm the first to say, if you do not like or get a vibe from your therapist, you can switch them. It's like a relationship.
Yeah.
I fire therapists all day long. My friends, but I do in real life. Like if I'm not, and plus I went to school for this, so I think I'm a little bit more difficult than most people because I will sit there and I will really break down everything that is going on with me, and I expect you to not come to me with this textbook BS because you know the textbook lingo. Don't come to me with that. I want you to really come to me from a therapeutic point of view and let me know what I need to do. Don't give me that textbook stuff. I can do that myself.
Right.
So I think that's why I get rid of therapists a little bit too fast. Because I'll be like, I'm not feeling this one. On to the next, on to the next. So, but I even tell my clients like, hey, if y'all not feeling your therapist, you have every right to change. Just like with your doctors, you're not feeling them. They're not giving you the care that you need. Switch, but don't stop. Because people would just stop and be like, okay, this was like a total like a waste of my time. I'm not doing it. I'm just stop. No, don't stop. Keep on looking. You will find that right therapist for you. Let's see.
You know, it made me just think about for this last go round, because this wasn't my first time being in therapy.
Okay.
I feel like it's been my most effective time being in
think
therapy.
that you're older, you already been through it, you kind of know like how it's gonna go. So this go around, you're more open to opening up. That's how I felt this go around when I started therapy too. Like, okay, this is a little bit better. I already know what I need to work on, so let me start working on it. Type of thing. Versus in the past, you didn't know what you needed to work on. You was just there because you spiraling out of control. You don't want to spiral out too much longer. So let me just go talk to someone before I be in jail somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or jump off a bridge or something.
Yeah. So I know with me personally, this go around have been very effective for me. It has me really reevaluating everything and everyone. I think with losing my dad, before it didn't feel like I was living. Now it feel like I need to appreciate every single day moving forward because you never know. You never know. And I do know with my mom, because she did not raise me, she also wrote me a letter probably a month or two after my dad passed away. Because I think that she felt as though, because my dad had always been my rock. He always been that person in my life, that consistency. She was not. So she wrote me a letter, which had me like in tears, like, boy. And I'm like,
and we know you don't be crying, so
I don't cry. I be trying not to cry, but she had been really like, she been soft a lot since my dad passed away. Like she been that attentive parent, that attentive mom that I always like wish for. But now I don't know if she felt as though her presence is much needed in my life now because my dad is gone or what. I don't know. But the letter basically said that how proud she of me, that she is doing, I'm doing everything that she couldn't even imagine me doing. Like she's sorry for everything that she had not done, for her presence not being, like, she was just apologetic and everything. And she started therapy like years ago. When my youngest just turned 12, so probably 12, 13 years ago. because we had this long talk, and I remember that talk because me and her was not talking to each other like that, like 12, 13 years ago. But she always had me down as an emergency contact every time she's hospitalized for either drinking too much or ODing or whatever. So that last time she called, the hospital called, I was like, don't call me again. I cannot go through this. This is not healthy for me. My mother needs to get her life together before I can even like try to like be in her life, because she don't want a life. So why should I even keep on running every time y'all call me? And I told her the same thing. I was like, you cannot continue doing this. If you want, it's too late for you to be a mother in my life, but it's not too late for you to be a grandmother to your grandchildren. So figure it out. Deuces, see you later. We ain't talked for like maybe 1-2 years. We have not talked. And then one day her therapist called me out the blue. I thought it was a joke at first because I cussed the therapist. I did. I was like, because I was so pissed. This lady calling me out the blue, talking about, well, your mother wants to have a session with you. And I was like, really? I'm not having a session with her. Like, I was so rude. And she was like, well, I know your mom been telling me a lot, and I know, but I think that this will really be helpful for her. It took a good 6 months for me to finally be like, all right, let me go do this session with my mother and her therapist. And then from then, that's when we start building on something. So even looking at my mom and what therapy had done for her, like she haven't been drinking for now 14, 15 years.
That's awesome.
She's still consistent in therapy. She's still like, she had done a 360, which have been remarkable to see. And I think last year when we spent Mother's Day, because then she went through cancer and everything, beat cancer twice, all of that. And I'm like, you know what? That's where I got my strength from. Her. She is the strongest woman that I know. And it's sad that I have never seen that up until like a couple of years ago, which is crazy. But I can say that she validated that I had hopefully I broke the generational curse. I mean, I had my first child at 18. Knock on wood, I got kids in their 20s still with no kids yet. They're getting their degrees. They doing what I wanted to do at their age, but they are actually doing it. So I'm happy to say that my trauma did not trickle over to them. And they haven't really experienced anything traumatic. I think my father's death had been the first traumatic experience that they experienced. So hopefully we can continue on in that path and they never experience anything that I have experienced in life. So,
and you know, that makes me think like, you know, of course they're going to have some things, but you never want your children to have to go through that. But I realized that too, just in working with people, and even for myself, that sometimes we fight so hard to try to prevent these things from happening, is that we cause something else to happen. So a lot of times as parents, we become enablers. Instead of letting children grow up and experience some things that we always want to stop.
Right.
And then, you know,
I can admit I have been I've been that mother. I think it's the fear of just, you know, in these days and times, our children, African American, I have 4 African American boys, 1 girl. My girl do not live here, so that have been very like, that's been hard, but I've been getting through it. But I think that, I don't know, I know that I can be a little bit hovering sometimes. But I have to remember, just like you said, like, okay, I gotta let them experience life on their own, because I had to do the same thing. I had to experience life on my own. And just trust the process that they have listened to what you have taught them over the years.
Yeah.
My daughter she told me a couple of months ago, because we had to sit and talk to her little brother that just keep on doing the most. And the conversation that she had with him, and I'm just sitting there like, that's my daughter.
They're like, oh, you learned something.
Okay. So she basically told him, like, listen, what mommy is telling you is absolutely right. You do not want to grow up so fast. This adult in life sucks. it is not what you think it is. She was like, just keep on being a kid. Like, keep on letting mommy and daddy take care of you, because this life right here is not it. It is not it at all. She was like, you got great parents. We got amazing parents. Like, you just need to listen to them. Because listen, I hate paying bills. I hate going to work. I hate going to school. It's a lot. And I was like,
oh. It's ghetto.
yeah, she was like, this is real ghetto, real ghetto. She was like, I would not be here without them. Like, so you need to straighten it out, because what they tell you is not wrong. It's not, yeah. Just listen, because, and I'm like, oh, you learned something. She was like, listen, I don't want this. It's like, this is a lot. I should have listened to you back then. But she was like, but what you had taught me had really equipped me for life. And I can really tell. So I had to stop hovering over her, because she moved so far away. And I was like, listen, I was calling her every day. She was like, Ma, stop calling me.
Oh my gosh. You drive me crazy.
I know. But I think it's just the fear of the world more than anything. Yeah. I don't think with me, it's like I don't trust that my kids would do the right thing. It's just the world. I don't trust the world.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger like issue that we are all facing right now. I just don't trust the world. I trust them.
Yeah. So. And I can understand that. I can understand it 1,000 times over, because with all of my trauma, I have trust issues, period.
Right.
I'm grateful that I'm in a better place now. Like I allow myself to be open enough to make certain connections and do what I need to do. And I'm so much further. I have to, and I'm stopping just myself, and even in this moment, because I have to give myself more credit. Like I am further along than what I used to be.
Okay.
But I'm still a work in progress when it comes to that, because I've been so let down by people, and people that I have trusted the most and taken in. Because I'm an all or nothing type of person. Mm-hmm. If you got me, you got me 1,000%. But if you don't, I'm completely out. There's no gray for me. And so even when it comes to my children, then I think initially with my first child, who just turned 21, my son, I think I was kind of like overprotective at first. And while even with all of the things that me and my ex-husband went through with the abuse and everything, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Him being there as a male figure during that particular time allowed me to see things from a different perspective, right, and helped me to pull back some so that he could have some exposure. So I learned then from Daniel that I can teach him and plant the seeds, but then allow school or life or whatever to start watering it, and it will grow, because now I'm seeing the fruit of it. And he's in school, he's a great person. Like, just in general, I would just let him be like my friend in real life,
right?
Not because he's my child,
right?
Seeing how he's attributing and contributing to society now, and then even with my daughter and with the little one, just how they instill so many different things in them. But sometimes we do, like we just do too much. We do the most.
We definitely do the most.
Frustrated.
We do. It's hard, because I have 4 adult children now, so it's hard. My anxiety be through the roof all day long. Like, but then I gotta be like, okay, my kids, they are good kids. They know right from wrong. They know all of that stuff. I have to just trust the process, and they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Because I swear I felt sick when my son announced the school he was going to. I was sick. I literally was sick for like days. I was like, another one leaving me? Like, I felt, and then I was like, all right, Tasha, get out of it. Your son did great. He's going to college. I don't know how many people can say that. 3 college, 1 police academy. And I was a young mom, so kudos to me.
That's right.
And their dad. So I can't wish for anything else. Like, I can't. You said something, and I forgot what I was gonna ask.
I'm just talking.
So going back to generational curse. So your personal experience is unique even to many people of color. Um, how do you feel that your grandmother's experience impacted your mom and then impacted you and then your siblings?
Um, hmm. My grandmothers and great grandmothers on both sides, the impact has been tremendous because they all allowed themselves to be used, abused, and manipulated by people who claim to love them, particularly men, but not only men, because even in their friendships and their other relationships that they have, like they're just like me, they're all or nothing. If you have any of them, they're going to give you the shirt off their back, the shoes off of their feet. Like that's just who we are.
Right.
But if we don't have no connection, like once we're out and we're done, we're done. Like it's the real kind of done, and people can't handle it because it's like, oh, we do all of this,
right,
when they're connected with us, but then when we're out, we're out. But it caused me, even when being raised in my grandmother's house, just watching her and the abuse that she took, because my grandfather, he was a heroin addict. It was so many heroin addicts. I think all of the men were just heroin addicts, alcoholism. We pretty much lived like prisoners in my home, hiding food, locking doors. Like it was very traumatic, even when I think about that piece. And I think about, him and his infidelity prior to becoming a drug addict. It was like she never got a break. And then she had to deal with her sons. She became an enabler with them, allowing them to overstay their welcome, become grown boys, essentially, very dependent on her. And I used to fuss. Like, I would be so angry. Tasha, like,
I listen.
I'm like, my anger issues back then were really bad. I would fight anybody. I didn't care because I was so angry, but I wasn't angry with the world. I was angry with my situation, And so I was angry with her because I could just see this stuff happening all the time. And I'm like, how do you keep letting him leave? You need to leave. But then I turned around as an adult woman and did the same dumb thing. I'm like, what in the world happened? And that's what hit me. So when I got to a certain point, it was that thought process. Well, one, wanting to kill myself when I no longer wanted to be here. Two, looking at my daughter and seeing the impact that it could potentially have in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And then three, the realization that it really hit me like, you are repeating the same thing, the same thing that you were complaining about, the same thing you were fussing about. You were telling her to leave and she's crazy, she just stupid. I don't know how she's dealing with this. You're doing it right now. And so I had to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. I think that God has given us just this innate ability to be able to overcome anything. Even from a physical aspect, the body has self-healing properties, right? So without medication, the cells can regenerate on its own. Now, of course, he's given us wisdom and knowledge to be able to take certain things to help us out. But in general, like we could go on for a long time without even taking anything else because we have these self-healing properties. And also he's given us the fight or flight. So you have this strength and this endurance on the inside of you. And when it's time to go, you can go. But we don't do it all of the time because of other factors and the things that we're watching and the environment that you're living in. I didn't even realize how much of an impact being raised in that household had on me, or being then going over to my mom's house and seeing her be the abuser, because it wasn't even my stepfather that was the abuser. She was the abuser.
Right.
I found out later on in life that she was living in a house though where her grandmother was being abused. And then she watched her mother be abused.
So it
also
just
going
on and on and on.
And I said enough is enough, which is why we have David's daughters now. Because God really did step into my situation and change things for me, restore my relationship with my mother. You know, it could have been different where I didn't even know this woman,
Right.
but I was allowed to be able to repair that relationship. She was like one of my best friends. She would get on my nerves. Yes, she would. Bless you, mother.
That's yeah,
She
because
would
my
get on
mother,
my nerves,
yeah,
but she loved me
right.
unconditionally, and I loved her just the same. That was my travel partner. That was my road dog. We would gossip a little bit and laugh and joke, you know, those things that I miss. But her strength, like I can identify what you were saying about your own mother, just about the strength that seeing all of these things about this person that I didn't know existed,
Right.
and I didn't understand why I am who I am
Yeah,
just because of her.
exactly. And it's good that you was able to share these moments with her because like you said, it could have went a totally different way and then you would never have known. That's why I'm like I'm happy for the moments that I've been able to share with my mom up until this point, and I cherished every moment with her. And I didn't realize then with my dad when he started getting sick, he was so adamant about living with me, and I'm like, why? And he was like, well, I want my last years on this earth to be with my grandchildren. Like I want to see them grow, and which he had for the last, I think he was living with us for like 5, 6 years before he got severely sick and went into a nursing home. But he got his wish. He wanted to wake up everything in the house noisy with kids fussing,
Mhm.
doing this, doing that. He got to sit with the little one at the table, do his homework, and like watch him. He got his wish. So I mean, yeah, it's yeah. Trauma, I know with me, I grew up in a household with my dad and my brother, so only female. So all day long I saw different women coming in and out of house first and foremost with my dad. So then my dad was amazing to me as far as being a dad and treating me like a princess. But when it came to these females, it was a different story. So then, like, you start seeing like how he talked to them and how they talk back, and you thinking, okay, this the norm, this okay. Not knowing, as I grew up, I was I was enduring the same thing that my dad was doing to these females, not knowing because in my mind I'm thinking this is okay. He can talk to me this kind of way as long as he's still like financially taking care of me. Because at the end of the day, my dad was financially taking care of these women, but they was allowing him to talk and do whatever he wanted to do to them. And that was okay in their mind. And then I'm doing the same thing when I get older. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. This has to stop. Like, no. So now with me, like I'm like, I know I did a 360 when it comes to how I allow people to treat me. It is anyone. I'm like, I'm a no tolerance type of person. You're not going to sit here and BS me. You're not going to sit here and talk to me any kind of way. You're
Mhm.
just not going to do it. I'm not, it's like, this wall up. I still have issues with trust. I think I think for the most part with anybody that go through trauma, trust is the number one thing.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to like break through that trust. And it don't have to, it's trust on any level. I'm starting to see. It's like you can somebody can your partner can tell you one thing, you be like, oh, I ain't listening to this
Right.
nigga. He lying. So and be like, whatever. Like
Right.
me, yeah,
Okay.
like all right, I believe it when I see it, like
Right.
whatever, yeah,
Right.
and
But I haven't done anything or whatever. I'm like, you're right. You haven't.
right, yeah, and it's like you just be like, all right, whatever. I heard
Mhm.
this before, whatever. I'm taking it with a grain of salt, type of thing,
Mhm.
and I had to learn to stop doing
Yeah.
it. Even though, like, I'm still cautious when it comes to everyone because of my trust. I don't trust people, and that's just I don't think that would be something I ever like get over. But when it comes to people that is in my life that I know truly love me, I kind of break like kind of like stay away from that and allow that trust to come in. But other people, it take a long time to get
Mhm.
that wall, like to get through it. Like, I'm sorry. It's like, and that's why I still do the therapy. I have
Mhm.
to like figure out a way to trust And I was told before I have an issue with vulnerability,
Mhm.
which is true.
Mhm.
So it's like vulnerability and trust are my two issues when it comes from trauma. And people think that healing has an end game, and it don't.
It doesn't.
Yes, healing is this continuous thing that keep on going on and on and on throughout your life. Like with both of us, we experience grief. We experience death from someone that was near and dear to our heart. And that just brought out other stuff that we need to heal from. So it's like it's always going to be a traumatic experience that keep on having you in that healing process. And I want people to just know that it's no end game to it. Like just trust the process. Like go through the necessary steps, do what you need to do the therapy, do the support groups, do whatever you need to do to try to work out these kinks when it comes to healing, because it is hard. It's not easy. You're gonna have your days, you're gonna have your moments, you're gonna cry, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry again, you're gonna feel like it's the end of the world, but you just gotta trust the process.
Yeah, trusting that process is definitely a big factor in overcoming trauma. Now, I'm definitely a proponent that and strong believer that um, by myself I can't overcome anything, but with God, all things are possible. And
Amen.
I know that people always like, oh my gosh, you always go back to Jesus. You always talking about Jesus, but I'm telling you, I can only tell you what I know. And what I know is that I've tried everything. I have literally tried everything. I tried to drink it out. I tried to sex it out. I tried to play it out. I tried to ignore people. I have tried it all. And the only thing that has sustained me is my relationship with God. And I know that there are some things that even with my connecting with a therapist, that it was limited to, that only coming back to my creator, that he could do that true repair and restoration for me. And he did it. Like he was able to take some things from me in an instant. And then there was some other things that he's like, no, Sierra, you want to live with this, you want to deal with this, and you want to process with it. And so you just have to be okay with both. You have to be able to recognize both, acknowledge that it exists, be okay with that being a part of you. Understand that when trauma happens, that it is a very physical thing that happens to you. So the neural pathways inside of your brain change every time that you experience something traumatic, which is why you can remember the details for
So
something that's trauma. Like, I mean,
yes.
It's tangible,
it's
right
there.
The smell, the taste, the texture, like whatever it was that was going on that time is very present for a person once you experience trauma. And so understanding that, yes, those neural pathways do change, but they can be converted back in the process. But you have to start somewhere. You can't just keep ignoring it and think that you're going to jump from relationship to relationship or jump from job to job. That was me.
That was me too.
I could always get a good job and I could always be in a relationship and a decent person or whatever, but I didn't want to connect like that. I had these attachment issues, so I wasn't connecting anywhere. If you got on my nerves or something happened, then I was out of it. It's terrible. Like I was just leaving a little bloody trail all across the city because little Sierra was a mess.
Yeah.
She really
I was the same way, but you said one key thing, living with it. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people struggle with, like living with it, like reliving everything that had happened and conceptualizing why it happened, what you can do to work on it so it don't happen again. Because I'm a firm believer, it starts with you. It starts because we attract these energies. We attract these people in our lives. So what are you doing to attract this? What are you doing to keep on bringing all of this negative energy into your life? Not saying that none of the blame should go on the abuser, but we have to take some type of accountability in what we're doing and how we're acting and what we're saying. So
it makes me think about like a piece of pottery, like if it's a vase and then that vase breaks and then on the ground, now you're trying to scrape up all the pieces and if you're trying to glue it back together, but then you wind up forgetting one of those pieces, then that is the part, that broken part that's missing, that you keep attracting, that thing that's going to fill it, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if it was addiction, if it was abuse, whatever it is, then that's what you keep attracting. And you're like, why do I keep getting it? I got a different person, but it's
the same thing
scenario, because you keep on trying to fill it with that. But it comes back to your creator and allowing him to rebuild it, because he's the only one that can do this masterful repair of any situation, of any person, because he's the one who made you from the beginning. And when he does it, then he does it well, and it fills a void in a way that you can never fill it with anything else. I mean, I can just be transparent in saying that even when I was in my relationship with my ex-husband, like, I had gotten to a point where I would drink every day. Everything sanctified, love Jesus, going to church, and all of that.
But you was trying to numb that pain.
But I needed to numb it, because of the level of abuse that was happening to me. I wanted to sleep.
Right.
I'm like, I need to be numb so I can get through this.
Right.
Or I want to be asleep by the time this person comes home, so I don't have to deal with it. And so that's what I was doing. It went from that to wanting to try to smoke Black and Milds. When that wasn't working, it was like avoidance. Let me leave the house. Let me not be there. Until it got to the point where none of those things were working anymore. And I hated even living. I hated even getting up in the morning and just wanted to die. It made the plan and attempted to try to take my own life. And it was after that I realized, like, you're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to do something different. I'm grateful that God sent a person. He sent my godmother on that day to intervene, because it could have been a different story for me. I'm like, but now, being on the other side, because I was rescued from that moment, I realized I had a lot to live for. There was reasons why I'm here, and I'm able to give back to somebody else, even in my broken state. I still have a lot to offer. I'm like, and so, I just encourage anybody, if you've experienced any type of trauma, which we all have, you have to get to a certain point where you just acknowledge it, and you recognize that you want to do better, that you want something different for your life.
Amen. I was getting ready to ask what was your breakthrough moment, but I think that was it.
That was definitely my breakthrough moment, where I realized that Sierra's life mattered. And I had even gotten there in the first place because I looked in the mirror and I no longer recognized who I was. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know who this Sierra was, what she wanted, where her confidence went, what she was headed to. It seemed like nothing was left and nothing was valuable for me anymore. So even now to my children, I felt like, well, they would be better off without me. There'd be somebody else here that can help them, because what do I have to offer?
Right.
And it was nothing but a lie from the enemy, which I realized at this point. But I just think about so many people who are going through situations that's similar, who feel hopeless, who feel helpless, who feel worthless, who feel like they don't have anything to offer. And I just want them to know that that's a lie. You do have something to offer. If you are here, you're here for a reason. Even if it's just for your neighbor, if it's for the people that's in your household, if it's for you to have that conversation with somebody else who's experienced something similar to you, because the Bible says that we are overcome by the power of our testimony. But because we've been taught the opposite, to keep the secret and to keep it to yourself, then there's so much impact that being lacking, because we're not telling other people that, hey, sis, I understand. And don't sis me to death just to say sis, but have some substance behind it. Like, hey, I really understand. I really did go through this. Not just sis because it sounds good and everybody is saying it now. Yeah.
I do agree. I do think that is more of us need to speak up about our traumas, our truths, so that other women can feel like they're not alone in whatever they're going through. That is the reason why I started Women at a Stand, to give women that platform, that outlet to speak their truth, to know that they're supported by other women, to know that it's other women out here that either went through something similar as you or they're going through it and they just need to hear it. And so far, it has been going amazing because I know when I was going through what I was going through, I had the fake sis that be like, sis, it's going to be okay, but then go behind my back and talk about me like, oh, she's stupid, she's dumb, or oh, that's not happening to her, she's making that up in her head. Thing. So I didn't want that for any other woman. That is the worst thing to go through when you're going through something as traumatic as abuse, to not have a support system. That is the most worst thing to go through. So let people know about Dana's daughter, because you have an amazing support group, an amazing organization that I think people need to connect with.
All right, so again, I am the founder of Dana's Daughters Inc., where we empower, we educate, and we elevate. You can find us on Instagram at Dana's_daughters_ or on Facebook at Dana's Daughters. You can also just follow me on Instagram at I am Sierra Walker, or on Facebook at Sierra Walker. I would love to connect with you. I would love for you to be a part of this movement. What we have going on, we have a lot of great events coming up, even some partnership events that we'll be doing with women in the I'm so excited. I'm excited about this love movement that Tasha is doing with letting our voices empower, because it is the power in your voice, just that release that happens when you just tell somebody else about what's been going on. We want to connect with you. We want you to know that there are no more secrets. We stand against it. We speak out and live in truth about whatever's going on with us, and then we heal from there.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself. So, like Sierra said, we're getting ready to connect to do our gala. Both of us do a gala every year, but we're going to partner up together this year. It will be sometime in October. I think we're shooting for October 15th, but please just look out for the posting, because I know with both our events, tickets sell fast.
Yes.
But we will be posting something about that soon. We are going towards the end of Let's Talk Love. At the end of my show, I've been trying to do a love potion for the day. So this is the love potion. There is no right or wrong of healing. Experiencing something as traumatic as abuse can and will leave a permanent mark on your life. It's how you choose to address the aftermath of abuse that is crucial. It's a process of healing wounds, and unnoticed wounds starts to deteriorate and become affected. Your mental health needs just as much tender, loving care as your physical health. So don't let that wound become affected. I am Love Potion, and remember to always love yourself first. Until next time, people. See you next week.